Okay, I was watching a video yesterday and there was a person that was giving advice on how to defend yourself and argue against like an asshole. And the problem is, I could just see in my mind all of these people that have been kind of argued into submission before, like taking notes, like, okay, I'm going to use this the next time I have this problem. Guys. And it's not even that the information wasn't correct. Some of it was. Like, for example, he was basically laying out a character attack versus a specific attack. But then his recommendation was that you get, instead of taking it personally, that you start asking questions. You make them get specific before, before you try to like engage in any response. Okay. For my babies, imagine you're dealing with a confrontational person and they call you like what was it? Oh, they say you're rude, or they say you're difficult or something. And your response is, "Oh, well, please explain further. What do you mean by this?" That is not going to go well for like the majority of people having this conversation. Um at all. So you've now given them license to get very, very specific. In his construct of how he was explaining this, how the conversation goes is they don't really have specific reasons. So, you're going to make them have to prove their claim, which is a tool sometimes that you want to use, but not about yourself. That's a tool for like, I'm on the internet arguing with somebody, or we're just arguing about something in general, not toward yourself. That is the wrong tool for that situation. And you can always tell people who've never really been, in argumentation, because they don't understand not every tool is for every situation. So you're in this specific personal conversation with this person and they say something to you like, "Oh, you're so difficult. Oh, please tell me more." You've now opened the door for more verbal abuse, for psychological abuse, for them to be very specific. Um, no, babies, no. I have no. So, for example, were this like a situation that I'm dealing with, my response would be facial. It would not be something that they could latch onto. They say, "Oh, you're so difficult." Right? The dismissiveness, the laugh, the okay, right? You're demonstrating to other people that this person is out of pocket, basically, doesn't have any kind of status or position to say these things against you. That's why it's so effective. That's why people that are thinking that the argument is about the issues specific to the argument itself, they always get thrown when they're in the middle of a back and forth with somebody and they're like, okay, because it's dismissive. It takes the wind out of the sails. The confrontation and the argument is about status. Who gets to say something? Who gets to be in a position to make those claims? You're having a status conflict. This is not about the issue. So he's sitting there online talking to people about how, "Oh no, you just need to like ask them, like, be more, well, what are you talking about? Be more specific." Oh no. That's something you might do for someone you're arguing about an actual other topic. Not when it's you yourself. When it's you yourself, you shut it down, as in they don't even get to say a thing about you, period. And you don't do it by arguing. You do it by asserting yourself. You laugh in their face. Like, "Oh, that's sad. Okay." Right? You don't make a response that allows them to continue. This is what So anyway, this person has way more followers than me, who think they're getting great information and I could just see it behind the screen. Someone is taking notes. There are no magic words for dealing with people. You get to a point where you understand what the underlying conflict is. And from that position, then you go, okay, here's how I want to deal with it. But thinking that you're going to do these debate type of maneuvers in a discussion with someone who's coming after you personally, like, "Oh, that's a character attack." I mean, he may as well have said ad hominem. Like, Sir, you are misleading a whole bunch of vulnerable people. And this is generally why I tell victims of abuse, like, don't, if this is not your bailiwick, now is not the time to attempt to start. I have I started in childhood, years of experience. And even I wouldn't sit there and go like, I'm a debate expert. I just have more facility than let's say others, like this particular person. You build those skills, like anything, you build those skills up over time. You don't tell a victim of abuse or someone who's in a position of power and status, lower status, oh, here's this magic word you're going to say, and you're going to win, that you're going to be able to navigate this situation. You are not. You are not. You are not. The better position, and the one that I usually tell people, is to recognize, oh, this is the situation. They're putting themselves in a position over me. They're trying to arrogate themselves above me and make me submit to them. Okay, now that I recognize what's happening, I can make choices on my own behalf. You recognize like, oh, this is a terrible person. 100%. I've had people that have attempted to do that. There's this one guy named Curtis. He kept trying to do that to me in a friend group. And I finally was just like, I'm not hanging out anywhere he is. And everybody else thinks he's great. For some reason, though, he keeps coming for me about stupid issues that he's wrong about. And I've effectively defended myself against him very effectively. But at the same time, who wants to live like that? None of us want to live like that. I've had dynamics with people where they've shut down their social media account, or they've started to follow me after the argument. Right? So when you're being effective, but most people are not going to be able to do that. I'm a paralegal. I was in team debate. I had a very autistic, abusive father, and I'm autistic. So you put all of that together, and I have a very specific set of skills. Most people cannot replicate that. So that's why when you're looking at people, they're giving you information online. Who is this person? What kind of effectiveness do they have? And generally speaking, they shouldn't necessarily even be trying to give people tools about how to argue online. Oh my gosh. Because I guarantee you, thinking, oh, I've got this response in my pocket and now I'm going to be able to handle this. The better response is a dismissive non-response. A lot of the time, you're okay, right? Using your face, being dismissive, because it's not about the words. It's not about the claims. It's not about what they're saying. It's a status conflict. Anyway, on a side note, once I became Christian, I started approaching argumentation in a little bit of a different way. And I don't normally talk about this, but this is something that's happening behind the scenes and I've never mentioned it. And so I want to at this point, because this I'm watching people give information and it's there's this can be dangerous. So once I became a Christian and I realized, oh, there's, and again, if this isn't you, please feel free to not watch this part. I totally understand. I was like, oh, there's a spiritual dimension here. One, I'm going to have to explain myself later to somebody. Two, I might be opening up some kind of a door or permission for something to attack me if I don't handle this right. And three, it's not just necessarily an argument, but it is a confrontation on a spiritual level. So when you're having this particular paradigm, it kind of starts to make sense how certain people seem to be always successful and certain people are not. When you're looking at it from a more spiritual realm perspective, it's some people have favor. Some people have protection. Some people don't. And so now before I decide to engage in an argument, I go ahead, sit down and pray. And I also make sure that I am not out of pocket in anything that I'm saying, any claims that I'm making. I try to be very careful, very specific. Also, I pray for God to guide me, for me to be accurate. I pray his protection, and also I pray his empowerment. And so there's Psalm 27 where, so I'm 100% will hit that Psalm 27. And what's this other one? Isaiah 54, where I'm like, okay, Lord, though the wicked advance against me to devour me, it is my enemies and my foes who will stumble and fall. And then the one that's the Isaiah is, behold, I have created the craftsman who fans the coals into a flame and forges a weapon fit for its task. And I have created the destroyer to wreak havoc. No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and you will refute every tongue that accuses you. That this is the heritage of the servants of the Lord, and their vindication is from me, declares the Lord. Okay. And I pray coverage before going into the situation. And also, I pray that into the past, present, and future. Because again, if you're a Christian, God's outside of time. So you can pray now for things in the past, present, and future. Because I didn't used to know this. So I was like, oh, Lord. And also, let me pray over every conflict, argument I've had in the past. I pray for protection and covering. I pray I don't say anything that is like will cause me spiritual harm or open me up or open a door. So when you see people and they're giving information out, here's what you say. You and I both well know that there are plenty of people who can say those things and they will still lose. There's more to it. And you don't have to believe that there's a spiritual element to it at all. And which is why I usually will tell people, follow your inner prompting, listen to that inner voice, listen to your gut, listen to your intuition. Your intuition is going to lead you and the path that's best for you. And not everybody is going to be on the same path, and that's okay. We are all individual people with our individual, abilities, capacities, set of skills. We all contribute differently in this world. And so don't feel like you have to do these things and then you can do whatever this other person is doing. That's them. That's not you. You may be a person with a different kind of, gentleness to your soul. And maybe that's very worth protecting so that you don't get into these conflicts. Again, be very, very careful of whose advice you follow. And I was like, let me go ahead and give people a more fuller picture of what I am doing to win these debates. Because the other thing too, that I do pray is that anyone who comes against me as an enemy is someone who is rescued and saved by the Lord. You don't have standing to pray for every single person, like in a Christian context, and you can be out of pocket if you're praying in a place you don't have standing to do that. But I have standing to pray for people who come against me as my enemy. They're trying to overpower me. Okay, you've opened the door. So now I get to make this prayer in that direction. Anyway, obviously trying to be ethical, but if you're trying to overpower me, then you're saying that you're somebody who can be overpowered, like in a spiritual permission sense. And I will use that to advantage. So anyway, I hope this makes sense. And again, if you're coming from a secular perspective or a non-Christian spiritual perspective, there are other ways to handle like an argumentation. And so you've got to work within whatever framework you have. The reason why I can work with all the frameworks is I've been in all the frameworks. So I can remember like, okay, this is how this framework works. Here's how I would give advice within that framework. So like in a spiritual framework, I might say something to the effect of using the law of attraction to make sure those people don't show up in the first place. In a secular perspective, it's going to be discernment. Like let's develop our ability to see what kind of person we're dealing with so that we don't have to be in that position. If you're really dedicated to becoming a person who's good at argumentation, just like anything, you have to put in the time and the skills, and it takes years and decades, right? Most people don't have that kind of time, and it's not for everybody, and that's okay. Anyway, I hope this makes sense, and I'll talk to you next time.